You won't believe the places where Black travelers are facing unexpected challenges. Welcome to Global Uncover, and in today's video we're diving into something that every Black traveler needs to know before booking their next adventure: the top 10 countries where Black people are not welcomed, from hidden prejudices to outright discrimination. Some destinations can make Black travelers feel anything but safe. You might expect a warm welcome when exploring new cultures, but for some the reality can be far different. In this video, we're not just talking about subtle racial biases or awkward stares. We're talking about serious racial tensions, anti-Black sentiment, and even places where travel warnings for Black people are a must. If you've ever wondered which countries have hostile environments or where Black travelers may face racism, you've come to the right place. We'll also be sharing insights on countries Black people should avoid and what you need to know to stay safe abroad. Trust me, you're going to want to stick around to see the full list. This might change your travel plans, so sit back, relax, and get ready for the shocking truth. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss out on travel tips. Number 10. Russia is the largest country in the world, known for its rich history and culture. However, it's also a place where racism against Black individuals persists. Black travelers and residents frequently report experiences of racial profiling. In smaller towns, overt racism is more common compared to major cities like Moscow. Hate crimes targeting Black individuals have been documented over the years. Neo-Nazi groups, though smaller in number, contribute to the hostility. Public transportation and nightlife spots are often reported as areas of discomfort. Many African students studying in Russia face challenges of integration. Job discrimination is also a persistent issue, especially for non-European foreigners. Moscow and St. Petersburg are slightly more diverse but still not fully welcoming. Russia's legal framework lacks strong anti-discrimination laws. Media representation of Black individuals is minimal and often stereotypical. During the FIFA World Cup 2018, racism in stadiums attracted global criticism. Online spaces in Russia are often filled with racial slurs and hate speech. Despite these challenges, cultural exchanges are slowly growing. Organizations like the African Russian Community advocate for equality. Safety can be better for travelers in tourist-heavy areas with guided tours. Avoid isolated regions or interacting with far-right groups. Russia's history with Africa during the Soviet era shows a complicated relationship. It's a country with potential for change, but for now, caution is advised. Number 9. China is home to the world's largest population and boasts rapid modernization. However, it struggles with racial diversity due to its largely homogeneous society. Black individuals, especially Africans, often face prejudices rooted in ignorance. Guangzhou, a hub for African traders, has been nicknamed Chocolate City. Despite the community's presence, racial tensions frequently arise. During the COVID-19 pandemic, Africans were unfairly targeted and evicted. Many landlords refused to rent to Black individuals, citing baseless fears. On social media, anti-Black sentiment has occasionally gone viral. Stereotypes about Africans often dominate public perception. Chinese media rarely portrays Black individuals positively. Some Black students report being excluded from group activities. Dating can be a significant challenge due to societal biases. In smaller cities, stares and uncomfortable questions are common. Public spaces can be both curious and unwelcoming for Black visitors. On the positive side, younger generations show signs of greater openness. Educational campaigns on diversity are slowly making an impact. Black travelers are advised to stick to metropolitan areas. Hiring local guides or translators can help navigate the social landscape. The African community in China continues to advocate for better treatment. While China has potential, racism remains a significant barrier for Black visitors. Number 8. Japan is a country of contrasts, blending tradition with innovation. Despite its charm, Japan remains largely homogeneous, with minimal diversity. Black visitors often report being treated as curiosities rather than equals. Microaggressions are more common than outright hostility. Instances of being denied entry to bars or clubs have been reported. Black tourists often receive stares and unsolicited photographs. Dating as a Black person in Japan can be particularly challenging. Stereotypes about foreigners, especially Black people, are widespread. Japanese media rarely features positive representation of Black individuals. Language barriers exacerbate feelings of exclusion for many Black expats. Job opportunities can be limited for Black professionals in Japan. African expats often rely on small, close-knit communities for support. Social etiquette can make confronting racism tricky in Japan. Black celebrities visiting Japan often highlight mixed experiences. Schools and universities are slowly introducing diversity education. Tokyo and Osaka are slightly more open to multicultural interactions. Tourists are advised to research areas with higher foreigner presence. Despite challenges, Japan's beauty and culture still attract Black travelers. Some organizations are working to bridge the cultural gap. While Japan is safer than many countries, social bias remains a hurdle. Number 7. Italy is renowned for its rich art, history, and delicious cuisine. However, it struggles with issues of racism, especially against Black individuals. Many Black travelers report incidents of racial profiling in public spaces. In rural areas, hostility and outright discrimination are more prevalent. The rise of far-right political parties has amplified xenophobic rhetoric. Black expats often face challenges in securing housing or employment. African migrants, particularly from Libya, are often treated poorly. Public transportation can be a space where stares and rude comments occur. Hate crimes, though less common than in other countries, are still concerning. Black athletes and entertainers have faced racial abuse during events. Stereotypes about Africans dominate Italian media and public perception. Rome and Milan are slightly more inclusive than smaller towns. Italy's colonial past has left a legacy of prejudice against Africans. African-Italian citizens frequently report feeling excluded from society. Tourists are often treated better than long-term residents, though not always. Advocacy groups are working to improve racial relations in the country. Black travelers are advised to stay in tourist-heavy areas for safety. Despite the challenges, Italy's beauty and culture still attract Black visitors. Efforts to educate Italians on diversity are growing, but change is slow. Travelers should exercise caution, but not let racism deter them from visiting. Number 6. Greece, the birthplace of democracy, is known for its historical significance. However, Black visitors often encounter prejudice, especially in rural areas. Many Black individuals report experiences of racial profiling by authorities. African migrants face systemic discrimination, particularly in housing and jobs. Negative stereotypes about Africans persist in Greek society. Black travelers may experience stares and uncomfortable questioning. In smaller towns, locals may be less accepting of people who look different. Hate crimes, though less frequent, have occurred against Black individuals. Athens is more cosmopolitan, but not immune to racism. Public spaces can sometimes feel unwelcoming for Black individuals. African expats and migrants often form tight-knit communities for support. Greece's economic struggles have fueled xenophobia in some areas. Media representation of Black individuals is minimal and often negative. Advocacy groups are working to improve racial relations and inclusivity. Black travelers are advised to stick to popular tourist destinations. Despite challenges, Greece's natural beauty and history attract visitors. African students in Greece frequently report difficulties integrating. Discrimination in nightlife venues such as clubs is also reported. Younger generations show signs of being more open to diversity. While caution is necessary, Greece's culture and landmarks can still be enjoyed. Number 5. Saudi Arabia is known for its wealth, oil reserves, and religious significance. However, it has a long history of discrimination against Black individuals. African migrant workers often face systemic mistreatment and poor working conditions. Black visitors and expats report experiences of exclusion and social bias. Racism in Saudi Arabia is often tied to the perception of darker skin tones. Public spaces can feel unwelcoming for Black individuals, especially women. Stereotypes about Africans are prevalent in Saudi society. Black expats often face difficulties in accessing equal job opportunities. Social segregation is a common experience for many African workers. Hate crimes are rare but not entirely absent, especially in rural areas. Legal protections for Black individuals are limited and often unenforced. Advocacy for racial equality in Saudi Arabia is virtually non-existent. African communities in the country rely on strong social networks for support. Public attitudes toward Black individuals are slowly shifting, but change is slow. Black travelers are advised to stay in major cities and avoid remote regions. Despite its challenges, Saudi Arabia's cultural and historical landmarks remain a draw. African expats often highlight the need for awareness about their cultures. Social media is helping to shed light on racial issues in Saudi Arabia. Black visitors should research local customs and exercise caution when traveling. Saudi Arabia's attitudes toward race reflect deeply rooted societal norms that need reform. Number 4. India, a land of diversity, paradoxically struggles with racism against Black individuals. African students and expats frequently report incidents of discrimination. In many cases, Black individuals are treated as outsiders and stereotyped. Negative perceptions about darker skin tones are deeply ingrained in society. Black travelers often face stares and unsolicited comments from locals. Housing discrimination is a common issue for African expats in India. Media and entertainment often perpetuate stereotypes about Africans. In public spaces, Black individuals report feeling excluded or marginalized. Police often fail to address racial harassment effectively. Indian cities like Delhi and Bangalore are more cosmopolitan, but not free from bias. Social media has helped expose incidents of racism, sparking debates. African communities in India often stick together for safety and support. Local activism is slowly working to promote diversity and inclusivity. Public awareness campaigns about African cultures are still minimal. Tourists should research their destinations carefully to avoid unpleasant experiences. Despite challenges, India's rich history and culture attract Black visitors. Reports of physical violence against Africans have surfaced in the past. Younger Indians are generally more accepting of racial diversity. Black travelers should exercise caution in rural areas and smaller towns. While India has immense potential, systemic changes are needed to address racism. Number 3. Israel is a land of historical and religious significance, but not without challenges. Black individuals, including Ethiopian Jews, often face discrimination. Racial profiling by authorities is a common experience for Black visitors. African asylum seekers frequently encounter hostility and poor living conditions. Public attitudes toward Black individuals can range from curiosity to exclusion. Media representation of Black communities in Israel is limited and often negative. Ethiopian Jews often report being excluded from mainstream society. Hate crimes, though less frequent, have been reported in certain areas. Activist groups are working to improve racial relations in Israel. Black travelers may find larger cities like Tel Aviv to be more welcoming. Rural areas and settlements are often less inclusive of racial diversity. Israeli culture values community, but integration remains a challenge for Black individuals. African expats and asylum seekers often form tight-knit support networks. Social media is helping to shed light on racial discrimination issues. Black visitors are advised to research local attitudes and safety precautions. Despite challenges, Israel's landmarks and culture attract many Black tourists. Education on diversity is slowly being introduced in Israeli schools. Younger generations show more openness to racial inclusivity. Advocacy groups continue to push for systemic changes to address racism. Israel's racial dynamics highlight the complexities of integration and acceptance. Number 2. Ukraine, a country in Eastern Europe, faces significant challenges with racism. Black individuals often report being stared at and excluded in public spaces. Racial profiling by law enforcement is a common concern for Black visitors. Hate crimes, though not widespread, are still a concern in some regions. Smaller towns and rural areas can be especially unwelcoming to outsiders. African students frequently face difficulties integrating into Ukrainian society. Language barriers exacerbate the feeling of exclusion for Black expats. Public transportation can be a space where Black individuals experience discomfort. Advocacy for racial equality in Ukraine is minimal and often overlooked. Media representation of Black individuals in Ukraine is almost non-existent. Kyiv, the capital, is slightly more inclusive than other parts of the country. Younger Ukrainians are slowly adopting more open attitudes toward diversity. Social media has helped raise awareness of racial issues in Ukraine. Black visitors are advised to stick to tourist-heavy areas for safety. Public attitudes toward Black individuals are often influenced by stereotypes. Safety concerns for Black travelers increase in politically unstable regions. African expats often form close-knit communities for support. Despite challenges, Ukraine's historical landmarks attract international visitors. Local activism is slowly working to address racial discrimination. Travelers should exercise caution and plan their trips carefully when visiting Ukraine. Number 1. North Korea is one of the most isolated countries in the world, with strict government control. The society is highly homogeneous, with minimal exposure to racial diversity. Black individuals are rare in North Korea, often limited to diplomats or special visitors. Visitors, regardless of race, are under constant surveillance by the government. Interactions with locals are restricted, reducing direct opportunities for discrimination. Propaganda-driven ideologies shape public attitudes, often fostering xenophobia. Black visitors are sometimes viewed as curiosities due to the lack of representation. North Korean media does not portray black individuals, reinforcing ignorance. African diplomats stationed in Pyongyang report subtle biases in social interactions. Racial stereotypes, while not overt, are deeply rooted in the country's isolationist mindset. The lack of cultural exchange prevents awareness of global racial diversity. Hate crimes are rare, primarily because of limited contact between locals and foreigners. Black travelers may encounter unusual questions or stares, stemming from unfamiliarity. Tourists are heavily monitored, with no freedom to explore independently. Discrimination, if present, is more institutional and systemic than personal. North Korea's education system promotes uniformity, leaving no room for diversity. Any racial biases are a reflection of the country's insularity rather than overt hostility. Travel to North Korea is discouraged due to political and safety concerns. Visitors are advised to adhere strictly to rules, as the consequences of defiance are severe. The isolationist policies of North Korea make it one of the least inclusive destinations for Black individuals. While these countries present challenges, remember that individuals within these borders may not share the same prejudices. As global citizens, we must work towards fostering understanding and promoting inclusivity worldwide. If you've had experiences in any of these countries, share them in the comments below.